Welcome back, students. Today we are going to discuss about Chapter 9, Heredity and Evolution, Part 1, Variation and Heredity. What is variation? Any difference between individual organism or group of organism of any species is called variation. There are two types of variation, genetic and somatic. Genetic variation is also known as germinal variation. They are caused by differences in the number or structure of chromosomes or by difference in genes. These variations are heritable. Somatic variations are caused due to several factors such as climate, food supply, and interaction with other organisms. It is not due to any change in genes or chromosomes. They are not transmittable to future generations. Now let us discuss the term hereditary. Hereditary involves the transmission of characteristics from parents to their offspring. Among sexually reproducing organisms, the progeny are not exact duplicates of their parents. They usually vary in many traits. Causes of variation. The reason why organisms resemble their parents lies in the precise copying of their genes. No two offsprings have exactly the same genes. This is because of mutation and genetic recombination. Good mutations lead to variations. When mutations are good, the organism survives to pass the mutation on to its offspring. As more and good mutations are passed on, more variations of a species become present, as in these parakeets below. Heritable variation. It is a result of changes in the arrangement of genes on the chromosomes or changes in the sequence of base that constitute DNA. Accumulation of variations. Variations in an individual may be an advantage or a disadvantage for it. Advantageous variations are selected by environmental factors. For example, bacteria that tolerate low temperature can survive in a cold way. Such heritable variation lead to the evolution and formation of new species. This figure represents creation of diversity over succeeding generations. The original organism at the top will give rise to, say, two individuals similar in body design but with subtle differences. Each of them, in turn, will give rise to two individuals in the next generation. Each of the four individuals in the bottom row will be different from each other. While some of these differences will be unique, others will be inherited from their respective parents who were different from each other. This is another figure depicting the same idea. When variation is so large in the species, we create subspecies. This is an example of subspecies of tigers. It is another example to show that variation results in the formation of new species. Trait. A trait is a specific characteristic of an organism. Traits can be determined by genes or the environment or by interaction between the two. Genetic contribution of a trait is called genotype. Outward expression of the genotype is called phenotype. These are some examples of human traits. Inheritance. It depicts the pathway of genetic traits and its expression from one to another generation. Inherited trait. An inherited trait is one that is genetically determined. They are passed from parent to offspring according to the rules of Mendelian genetics. Now, difference between acquired and inherited trait. Acquired traits are traits which are developed in an individual due to special conditions. They cannot be transferred to the progeny. They cannot direct evolution. Example, low weight of starving beetles. Inherited traits are traits which are passed from one generation to the next. They are transferred to the progeny. They are helpful in evolution. Example, color of eyes and hair. Genetics, the study of pattern of transmission of characters from parent to their offspring is called genetics. Genes are the unit of heredity and they are also a segment of DNA that codes for a trait. Allele. An allele is one of two or more versions of a gene. An individual inherits two alleles from each gene, one from each parent. If the two alleles are the same, the individual is homozygous for that gene. If the alleles are different, the individual is heterozygous. Now about dominant and recessive allele. The trait that always shows up in the organism whenever it is present is the dominant allele. The trait that is masked or covered up whenever the dominant allele is present is the recessive allele. These are some examples of dominant and recessive allele in different traits in human beings. Representation of alleles. The dominant trait is usually represented by a capital letter. For example, tallness is represented by capital T and dwarfness is represented by corresponding small letter t. If tallness is due to a pair of dominant allele, it is written as capital T, that is homozygous dominant. If tallness is due to only one dominant allele, it is written as capital T small t, that is heterozygous dominant. If both alleles are recessive, making the organism dwarf, then it is written as small t, that is homozygous recessive. There is another example given. Trait is round seed and wrinkle seed. Round is dominant. So homozygous dominant is written as capital R. Heterozygous dominant is written as capital R small r, and homozygous recessive is written as small r. This figure shows about phenotype and genotype. You can see that three different genotype is present here. Homozygous dominant, heterozygous dominant and recessive character. Homozygous dominant and heterozygous dominant phenotype is same. Here we come to the end of this video. Thank you for watching.